Hey, welcome to Dan's Mod Works, and we're back working on the stair car. I'm holding a set of stairs, and I'm afraid I've gotten off to a slow start on the stair car this week. I thought I was going to be working on it a few days ago, and other things came up, life, universe, everything in it. So one of the first things I've done this week is I used some Vallejo putty just to fill in some of the gaps that were between the sides and the stairs. So I've got to do a little bit of scraping to clean that up. And then we will be putting all of the cast resin lights in place. Another lighting item, not that it's actually going to work on the model, that needs to be added is these tail lights. And they're just some resin castings I made from basically some taillights from an 18-wheeler. Now, you know what? I'm going to admit they're not the exact same type of tail light as was used in the series, but I figured these are close enough and will serve the purpose. But basically, I think this is a slightly newer version of the classic utility-style tail light. So I've installed the little filler piece onto this tread right here. And as you can see, I've got all of the stair lights in place, and they actually alternate. Gee, there's one here, then one there, and they alternate back and forth. And I was debating what level to set this at, basically to go with this one or one stair up sort of thing. And I just thought, you know what, the fit is slightly better at this point, and it keeps the model from being any taller than it has to be. And not only that, at least we can see there's one stair tread, so you know that it does telescope. So this is where I'm going to be nailing it down. One of these, well, I can't really leave this loose much longer without impeding progress, so we're going to be gluing the inner fixed part of the stairway to the outer telescoping portion. So now with the height of the stairs, and they're locked in their position now, and it's still removable. I can still take them actually out, but the length of the stairs is now fixed. From pictures, it looks like the bracket goes up to about right there, and it goes down at an angle. So the point I'm going to basically build it from here to there. That's going to be our elevating bracket going there. I've got a good start on the elevating mechanism here. As you can see, I've got a piece here for mounting it, and it's not glued in here right now. The round vertical uprights here with the triangular reinforcement, that's very clear in the photos, as is this transverse piece here. I'm going to be boxing in the lower segments of these, mainly because they would want something, you know, to keep them square and going in a straight line. And I'm going to be putting a hydraulic cylinder in right about here, which would actually give you the muscle for raising and lowering the stairs. But this is the start of it. And it's designed so that I can just kind of pop it in place when I'm finally gluing everything in at the end. Now a little bit of fiddling with evergreen styrene, and we've got a hydraulic cylinder in there now. And I think I'm probably going to be putting a very thin piece of rod on the side there, basically to represent the return line, because you've got some types of hydraulics, you know, can just basically bleed down, and other ones, you know, there's a little bit of muscle going in the other direction. So I decided that, you know, probably in order to lower the stairs to a certain amount, they probably have something like that. So I'm going to put a return line on it. The bushing at the top, that was created just by using another piece of tubing just sliced and laid onto its side. There's the whole thing put in place, and let's just put the stabilizer legs in as well. You can see what that area looks like, and that closely matches what I've seen in the photos of these real stair cars. So I think I'm pretty much happy with that. I'm just going to be putting some very fine black wire in here and there, and that will basically represent the hydraulic lines. And really, you're not going to see anything below about this point anyway. Now it's time to make the decking for, well, I probably best describe it as the bridge. That's the part that comes off the front of the staircase. I'm assuming bridge is probably the term. Walkway, whatever. I've decided to use this material here. This is from, once again, from Evergreen Styrene. And I think it's some sort of car siding from model railroading. You can see it's got kind of this texture to it. And I'm going to cut it in such a way so that it's basically going to go crossways. And I figure it probably wouldn't be a really smooth surface. They'd probably have some sort of rubber texture on it with some sort of anti-slip surface on it. So that's what I'm going to use for my upper decking. This is the start of our bridge going from the stairs to our hypothetical aircraft. And as you can see, I've put in 2 of the I-beams. Basically, from what I can tell from photos, is there's 2 I-beams in the middle here, and then there's a thicker piece here on the sides that tapers from pretty much the depth of the last step here down to this dimension right here. So that'll be the next thing I work on, and you can see this whole thing kind of pops on like that. So, and that is the bridge portion glued in place. I'm going to have to set it aside for a little bit and make sure it dries really solid. I was debating not gluing this on till much later, but there's a certain amount of framework that's required to go on for the sides. Now, I'm not going to make my sides movable, but the machinery has to be there to show that it is possible to move it. So I really couldn't get into that until I had this glued in place. There will still be one more little piece of plastic running along here. Now that we've got our bridge in place to get us across to the aircraft, it's time to put these side pieces on. Now, I actually made 2 attempts at these. The first time I really wasn't satisfied with the shape, so this is my second attempt here. And as I've said before, we're primarily modeling the 1978/79 Stair car. The other one is a mid-80s chassis, and the older one, the 69, that has kind of the 79 face on it, I'm convinced that that isn't a real Stair car. It's just basically a prop which looks very similar to, you know, like all this bodywork is just fake. It's not a real telescoping set of stairs. So having said that, and saying that we're primarily modeling the 1979, I should point out that there are some differences between it and all the other real Stair cars made by the Victory Company that I've seen. One of them is these side pieces. On most of the ones I've seen, the sheet metal only goes up about yay high, and then it's kind of a skeleton at the top. And on the inside, there's a lot of framing that you can see. On the car that they used in the series, the 1979, it's basically smooth on both sides. There's just a rail running on the inside to make it go backwards and forwards. The other difference is on the 1979 one that they used in the show, the lower rail that holds this is very, very prominent and sticks out a lot. Almost looks like somebody kind of whipped it together in their backyard. It's very untidy looking, and all the other Stair car pictures I've seen have a much more compact, neater design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sides from the 79. You know, they're smooth on both sides, but I'm going to use the mechanism from all the other pictures I've seen. And of interest is the 1969 car, the one that I consider to be a fake one. there is no mechanism or anything. These are just basically bolted onto the side. So I'm going to be going with smooth both sides, but I'm going to be going with the much more neat mechanism that's found on the other pictures that I've got. These vertical portions here are part of the support and the mechanism that holds the side pieces on, because they have the ability to slide back and forth, as I've mentioned before. And as well, I've said that I'm modeling not the exact one that's found on our stair car, but rather some of the other examples I've seen, mainly because they're a lot neater than what's on the show stair car, which just looks very, very untidy. So I'm using a little bit of modeler's license in using a better looking one than they actually had in the show. So this piece right here, you can see I have a piece of channel glued on. Now, on the real mechanism, that channel is not solidly attached to the side panel, but rather there's a guide that comes underneath and grabs onto the bottom of it. And then there'll be another guide that runs on a rail up here at the top. But for the sake of building the model, it was easier to glue it on here, and then I'll just simply put the shoes that go underneath. And the total amount of movement that this part has is basically between here and here. So this would be its fully out position, and this would be in its all the way back position. There really isn't that much need for this thing to move too far. Now we're getting somewhere. These pieces here on either side, the upper part is in fact track that, I find an appropriate one here, that there's mounts on the sides which hook onto. Now I'm not actually going to be modeling rollers and ball bearings. I'll just basically have a structure that represents that on there. But I'm about ready to glue these pieces on, and save for a few details, we'll have most of the big parts done. There, we finally have the sides in place. As I said earlier, I'm still going to model the clips and retainers that would hold these onto those sliding guides. You have to remember these things probably only go back and forth probably about maybe 1.5 feet, if that. They wouldn't need any more adjustment than that. But we finally, as I said, have most of the big parts done. Just pretty much railings to put on, and then I can prime this whole thing, which will be good. So here's a bit of a teaser picture of most of the big parts put together. I have to say, it is a fairly impressive size. I've pre-bent some 2mm round stock from Evergreen. Now this is solid. This isn't tubing, and I will still need to put very small stanchions to bring it up from the sides. But for the most part, they all bent pretty good. This one not quite as smooth as I would have liked, but we'll see how it looks. So these are the outer railings, the ones that go on the outer piece that telescopes around the fixed part of the staircase. And they're actually lower than the parts that are on the fixed part of the staircase. You know, that seems a little confusing. But you have to look at the pictures carefully to kind of figure out how these things go. So that's the outer railings installed. And they actually went on fairly painlessly. Nothing went wrong. So you know the inner ones are just going to be a royal nightmare. And there is the inner main handrail. Don't know why there's such a difference in height, but there is. I mean, even when this goes up, this railing is still much lower. But that's the way it really is. So, I mean, you'd think they would want a higher railing on the upper part of the staircase, but that's not the way it's set up. Oh well, I don't have to use it. I'm just making a model of it. So, I still have a couple of little details to do up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime it all using flat white. I'm going to give it a coat of gloss white. And the handrails later on are going to be painted aluminum, because that seems to be what color they are on the real thing. And I could see them wanting to use a fairly lightweight metal for that, because this has got to be a pretty heavy vehicle as it is. So I could have and should have had this video posted about 2 or 3 days ago. My intention was, I'm going to get all the new plastic primed and probably a coat of white paint on it before I post it. Why that was so important to me, I don't know. Well, the past 2 or 3 days, I just have not had time to sit down and do any modeling whatsoever. So, you know what? Let's just package this video up and get it up. And that way I'm kind of free to move on to some other stuff. At this point, I'm hoping that the last video on this is, or the next video on this is going to be the last, that it's basically going to be tying everything up. So, like I said a couple segments ago, all of the big sub-assemblies are now completed. It's just basically putting all the little bits and pieces together, and especially I need to make the decals that are going to go here and here. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on modeling, and my weight update is going to follow, and no results there either. I don't think I've lost any weight in the last week or so, so I'm going to have to make a bit more effort in that realm as well.